This is an extra special version of Tabletalk because Matt and I are here with Tom Kenny.
Yay!
Thank you for being here.
Well, thank you. Nice being here with you two guys.
Absolutely. Those of you at home, most of you probably know Tom as the voice of SpongeBob Squarepants, but he's also voiced like 1,000 different things.
Yeah.
He is a very, very prolific voiceover actor and also just screen actor. I'm a huge Mr. Show fan, so this is like a big deal for me to meet you in the flesh.
Great. Yeah, it's funny how all that stuff kind of the audience for everything kind of is one big mashup now.
People
kids
can find what they want wherever it is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and SpongeBob started kind of around the same time as Mr. Show. Like Mr. Show was in its 3rd season, and I remember getting a call like on one of the sets we were doing. I think we were shooting like on a farm or in a stable or something, and I was wearing like this uncomfortable fake beard, and it was like 100 degrees out. It smelled like animal dung,
Of course it did.
And I got a call that like, hey, that weird little cartoon you did about the sponge with the tie got picked up for a series. And I was like, yes, all right. Voiceover is sounding really good to me right now, And then things kind of took off. As a result, I didn't do the 4th and final season of Mr. Show. Because the voiceover thing was clicking, but my wife did all 4 seasons of Mr. Show.
Right, you're married to Jill Talley, who was also on
Yes.
that show.
Yeah,
awesome.
and didn't SpongeBob originally start as a comic book?
It did well. I think it did. Like in the sense that Steve Hillenburg, the creator of SpongeBob, worked at a ocean science place for kids, and he did a comic book called The Intertidal Zone or something like that about. It was more science-based, but it was kind of the germ of anthropomorphizing these
Good word.
Sea creatures.
These sea creatures, and including plankton, and stuff like that, like things that later did come out in SpongeBob. That was kind of their genesis.
That's awesome. Well, if you would like to start us off
Grab
as
the
our
inaugural topic.
Okay.
Go ahead, pick out of the bowl. Tell us who it's from and what they said.
All right. Oh. He's adorable. His name is Brian MP21 at SourceFed. Have you ever broke out into SpongeBob out of nowhere? Like just like just let rip.
Yeah.
Rip with the voice. Like if I can't get a table at a restaurant.
Do you know who I am? Listen, you better see me right now. My entourage. I have an entourage of 50 people here.
No, I like we were talking about. I kind of like a certain amount of invisibility.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
So it's kind of it's rare for me to bust it out. Like once in a while, the times that I will bust it out is if you see like. Sometimes you'll see somebody, often it's a little kid, like decked out in SpongeBob
See, that's what
style.
I was thinking
and you
of.
But first you got to make sure that it's okay with the parents, so you don't seem like a weirdo.
Yeah.
Totally.
You know what I mean? So you go, hey, I'm the voice of SpongeBob. Is it okay if I go up and they're like, oh my God, he'd freak out. I love it. So and they go, they got like a SpongeBob shirt, and a SpongeBob hat, and a SpongeBob toy, and they just wig out. So I'll do it then because then it blows some kid's mind, which is always fun to do.
That's so awesome and magical.
If Mel Blanc had done a little Bugs Bunny for me when I was a little kid, my head would have exploded.
Right?
Yeah. It would have made your entire life.
It would have. I mean, I always try to be super nice, especially to kids.
Yeah.
Because, why wouldn't you be, obviously, but, they could like somebody else. They don't have to like you.
No, you want them to like
You know what I mean?
SpongeBob.
So true. They
You know what I'm
just
saying?
like somebody else. There's so much stuff out there.
There's so much stuff out there. If they like you, why would you not be nice?
Yeah.
That's the sweetest thing in the
You
world.
guys, I'll be a jerk too.
Oh,
Okay.
well,
But,
okay.
'cause you
That's
can
okay,
handle it.
that's what we're
'Cause
here
you can
for.
handle it.
Yeah, we're
We
old
take
enough.
the jerky part of you so that you can give the
It's
sweet
like an
part to
exorcism.
the
Do we
children.
take the jerky,
Project it onto
Trisha?
you.
Yeah, we'll take the jerky.
Speaking of jerky,
Okay,
another one of
let's
these?
do it. Let's go for another one. Matt, do you
All
ever
right.
break out into a SpongeBob voice for no
this
reason?
is from
Not
Pissed Off Gay
SpongeBob
Boy.
Boys, but, Pissed Off Gay Boy.
Pissed Off
Pissed off
Gay
gay boy. Great.
How does fire work underwater? This is a science question. This is a Neil
ever-present
deGrasse Tyson.
SpongeBob.
I'm so
question.
excited to break down this topic because
Here we
I have
go.
a few theories.
Okay,
Okay,
great.
you have theories?
I have a few theories.
I've done some
See-
research as well.
I don't have a theory.
Okay.
My theory is one must never question cartoon logic.
Yeah.
You can't. Like, if you're, I remember once in a while I would be watching the Flintstones when I was a kid and go, wait, they're watching a fight on television, but they don't have an internal combustion engine in their car. They got to use their feet.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. How can they have a TV and they have to use an elephant's trunk to take a shower? You know, but then I go, no, Tom, don't. It's too crazy.
Can't break.
Yeah, if you have fire underwater and you're saying that can't exist, then how do you have electronics underwater? How do you have cars underwater?
Yeah.
How do you?
How do you have fast food underwater?
It's a rabbit hole.
Well,
and impossibilities.
Well, you know, I think didn't the Cuyahoga River like catch on fire back in the '80s? You know, in Ohio.
Idea,
I think it was so polluted that it just burst into flame. So you can have
But that leads into what I think is a decent theory, which is whatever mutated these creatures into having like full anthropomorphized features.
Okay.
It's got to be some kind of pollutant that would
so
then.
it's like the ooze in Ninja Turtles.
Yeah, which I think would also like repel water. So that's what I'm saying is like if you lit it on fire, the water would potentially be repelled, or it could just be highly oxygenated.
So maybe it's the same ooze. Like maybe one canister fell into the ocean and the rest went down in the sewers.
And that's what happened.
Well, hey, all sewers lead to the ocean.
Except instead of meeting like a cool rat that knows kung fu, I wound up with like a greedy boss that doesn't pay me good.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, you know, sometimes you win, sometimes
and
you know what? Life's a
karate.
I do it karate.
Karate.
Yeah. Sandy taught me. So my answer is do not question. His answer is that the SpongeBob cast are all mutations of nature.
Fierce mutation.
I actually read an article that said that there is a type of fire that can exist underwater, and I think it only exists. It only exists like very, very briefly, and it consumes the oxygen in the water and then like goes out. But that's a thing. Look
That's
it
the
up.
coolest thing in the world.
That's a thing. Look it
Wow,
up.
that is awesome. I want
look
at Little Miss Science here. I'm loving it.
Waterproof fire.
I watched a lot of Mr. Wizard.
IBA. Yeah, I think that's IBBY.
IBA.
Yeah,
at
What made you want to go into voice acting?
It was that beard and the 200-degree day on set.
It was the beard. Please, I don't want to wear prosthetics anymore. No, it was just a lifelong fascination with cartoons that led to a childhood fascination with cartoons, I should say, that led to a childhood fascination with who does the talking for these guys. And then that led to the question: is that a voice? Is that voice acting or whatever you want to call it? Is that a job that a grown-up could really do? Could have? And it was kind of like just kind of following these breadcrumbs, you know, in the pre-internet age where information was very scanty, you know, especially in a place called in a place like Syracuse, New York, that was really far from show business. Like, you know, I didn't know anybody who was in show business. You know, like everybody knew was like, you know, like a meat cutter or like worked in a Chrysler factory or you know, my dad was an accountant for an air conditioning company. You know, I didn't know anybody that made their living with creativity.
Sure.
And that seemed almost impossible to me. You know, that you could do that. And then I started doing stand-up when I was a teenager, when I was still in high school.
Good for you.
And then that led to, you know, one thing led to another. And next thing I moved to Boston, started to, you know, did stand-up, did pretty good, wound up doing, you know, TV and stuff like that as a stand-up guy. And then Mr. Show and shows like that. And then voiceover kind of blew up as being like the main part of my pie, my job pie, you know, whatever you want to call it. It went from being like, you know, a little portion of the chart to being, you know, 99.99%. Since it was my favorite thing to do anyway, I was totally loving that, you know, and I actually tried to make that happen.
Yeah.
So it's that's it. That's what got me interested. But I guess that's you know, sorry. I guess it's just about. I guess if there's a takeaway from that, it's just about stuff that you get really interested in as a kid. You know, if you stay interested in it and find out all that you can about it, you just might wind up earning a living like connected to this thing that you were really into as in your formative years.
Yeah.
But I think you have to be into something like you know, a lot of kids, you know, what do you like to do? I don't know. You know what I mean?
Well, and I find that most kids that are into cartoons think, oh, I want to grow up and make cartoons. They think about the artistic aspect of it.
Yes.
Like as far as like, oh, I'm going to start sketching because I love cartoons.
Yes.
So it's so lovely to me that you think, oh, I want to be the voices. I want to be the soul behind this cartoon.
Yeah, well, mostly because my drawing sucked so bad. But my 17-year-old son is one of those drawing kids who, he'll wind up being an animator, I'm sure.
Yeah.
That die is already cast.
Has he already said, "Dad, when I make a cartoon, you're gonna play a part"?
No,
for
he is
scale?
not even. I keep trying to lead him into saying that, and he just is like, you know what? Let's not right now. Let's not rush it.
I've got other people in mind.
What advice would you give to someone who was looking to pursue voice acting?
Well, the advice I would give to anyone, pursuing voice acting, I would just say, I got into it like totally in the wrong way.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I kind of stumbled into it. Yeah, like that. Like that, exactly. But I think what stood me in good stead once I started to get booked on stuff was, and a lot of it was stuff I hadn't even realized I was doing, like, listening to voices, you know what I mean? Weird accents, like interesting voices. Not even so much celebrity impressions, because I was never really good at those, but just interesting people and voices and accents and regional stuff and characters, and like, I also always loved character actors, like old movies and TV shows, like these kind of forgotten character actors. And a lot of the voiceover people have that fixation. So it's like, you'll plug in some obscure voice actor from like 1935 movie that you saw, and it's a new voice as far as most people are concerned, but it's like, wow, that guy that always played the fussy hotel clerk, that guy was awesome. I don't know what his name is, but he was always that guy. Yeah. And so they go, you audition with kind of channeling that guy and maybe mashing it up with a couple other things, and it's a new voice.
So it's about pulling and then remixing.
It's kind of like, you guys obviously have kind of wide-ranging interests for, pop culture and how to make fire underwater.
Of course.
And it all kind of winds up serving you pretty well, so I would say, really just, I tell kids all the time, like, if you like video games, you like playing video games, don't stop at playing them.
Yeah.
How do they make them? Who writes the stories for video games? Who makes up the storyline? Who does the graphics for them? Who pitches the concept for video games? Like, there's a way for you to get into this world that you like. The more you learn, the more interesting. You can grab a glove and get in the game instead of just playing the game.
Right. A lot of people don't realize that it's not impossible to be a part of the things that they love.
No, because and if you have passion and love of the thing on your side, then that will, that really reads to people. Like, even now, like, where you're right. I think people go, oh man, it's so overcrowded, that field or this field or that field, and people are getting in.
Well, that's what I've always heard about voiceover, is like, oh, it's such a small, close-knit community. It's really hard to break into. And so they'll shy actors a lot of times, or other creative types, away from choosing that type of industry because of that.
It is hard to bust into, It was hard for me to, I was auditioning for voiceovers and wanting to be a voiceover guy for years and years before I ever was paid to do a voiceover, and I auditioned, and then even after my first cartoon, Rocko's Modern Life, ended, it was like another year and a half or longer before I got another cartoon, and then the ball started rolling. But I thought maybe Rocko's Modern Life
was it.
Yeah,
it's a great show to go out on.
Yeah, it was like, it was
Rocko's
fun.
Pretty awesome.
And I was like, okay, so now what am I? Am I gonna be a writer? Am I gonna keep doing the stand-up thing? What am I gonna do? And then it's I guess that's another a tip. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just the more tools you have in your belt, the more stuff you can do, the better.
Rocko was so subversive. Like, watching that series again.
Very true.
In the first episode, Rocko basically gets sexually assaulted.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah.
It was one of those
Succomatic?
cartoons that was also for adults.
I didn't remember that. I think I must have pushed it out.
When I think about that, and you're right, like when I watch Rocko now, I'm like, I guess I knew it was subversive then, But now it seems really
It's like,
subversive.
wow, we got away with a lot.
And I think the inmates were running the asylum a lot more back then. Like there wasn't a lot of eyeballs on the. You could get away, Ren and Stimpy, Rocko's Modern Life. Like
Ren and Stimpy was real bad.
Yeah, and there weren't. The animation was just kind of this bunch of weirdos down at the end of the hall that were working on stuff. Leave them alone. They'll get their cartoons done. And now, I think, especially when something becomes successful,
right,
and there's a lot more eyeballs on it incrementally. Like the more money something makes, and the more successful something is, the more eyeballs are watching it. But Rocko never really became like a big merchandising thing or anything like that.
That's true.
So like I said, it was totally the inmates running the asylum.
Yeah.
And then a lot of times when the powers that be would like cop to something that was in there, it was too late. It was already too
animated. We can't. The money would.
Yeah, it is already on. They're watching it on TV and going, "Oh, they did what?" And it's like too late.
I feel like SpongeBob finds that nice balance though.
SpongeBob
it's
does.
fun to watch as an adult, and it's also fun for children.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that I guess if there's a unifying factor between like the cartoons that I've enjoyed being on the most, it's they're just character driven. It's all very character driven. I mean, really, something like SpongeBob, like this movie that opens February 6th.
What movie is that?
It's called SpongeBob Squarepants, Sponge Out of Water.
Woohoo!
February 6th, and I saw it last week. It's awesome, but it really is. It's totally weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would hope so.
Yes, that's what I think.
I need it to be weird.
Is it better than the first one, or just different?
It's different. I mean, that last SpongeBob movie, the only other SpongeBob movie, was 10 years ago.
I know. It's crazy.
It
was 10 years ago. It was 2004.
Yeah.
Holy cow.
Summer of 2004.
So that's hard to believe. We're almost like Dumb and Dumber.
Yeah.
In terms of length. In terms of length between sequels.
What took
SpongeBob and SpongeBobier.
Yeah.
Yes, it's pretty crazy. Well, I think it was mostly Steve Hillenburg saying that he hadn't come across a story that he thought warranted
a feature length,
the biggest feature length thing, and
awesome.
And of course, those aforementioned powers that be, I think, would have wanted a SpongeBob movie much earlier, and he just was like, I'm just not feeling it. I don't want to put something out there
that's not up to the standard.
Yeah, or that's not like, it's got to be something that we couldn't do in the 11-minute TV episodes. Like, it can't be a small story, but I don't want to think of a big story just that exists just for the sake of being big, where bigness is the reason for the story. And I mean, this all sounds like, boy, when you break down cartoons like this and start talking so serious about it, it really is horrible.
Does it take all the fun out of it, or put more fun into
I'm saying,
it?
yeah, I don't mean to get too, I don't mean to get too inside baseball.
I love it.
But
I
I'm
love
just
it.
saying, I'm just saying that he really didn't, and then the time was right, the story was right, and it was time, and I guess to answer your question, the difference between the two movies, besides 10 years, is two things: technology and globalization. Like SpongeBob is so much more worldwide. He was popular 10 years ago, but not even close to what he's at now in terms of
global
the
awareness.
Earth. So it's like SpongeBob is in countries now that he wasn't even, him getting into those countries wasn't even a consideration back then,
Right.
and that makes for a whole different environment to put a movie out into. And also that first SpongeBob movie, it did well, it was fine, but it was 2D. That's another thing. I mean, now
we're in 3D.
3D, and that wasn't even much of a thing 10 years ago.
Do you know if they're showing it in any 4D theaters?
I don't know, where they just throw a bucket of water on you.
Yeah, they literally just water.
And then light you on fire.
But they set you on fire when they light fire on water. The cool thing about this movie is that there's the familiar 2D SpongeBob. They've rendered that into 3D, which looks really great. I wasn't sure how I'd feel about that. And I don't think Paul Tibbett, the director, and Steve Hillenburg were sure how they would feel about it. It's kind of something that I think was a little bit.
It's different.
It was kind of foisted upon them. You know what I mean? Like, well, you got to do it that way because that's something. And then when they saw it, they were really happy with it. When I heard they were happy with it, I was happy with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I was even before I saw it. And there's CGI 3D. There's live action. There's puppets. There's like puppetry
awesome.
in the movie. You know, there's an ancient like watcher of the universe kind of dolphin. You know, because dolphins are such a
they're so intelligent.
breed. You know, most of his scenes are old school hand puppet.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's cool.
That's
you know, it's
really
kind of
cool.
hand, and that's another thing that's always I think sets SpongeBob apart is that it's always been made ever since the beginning of it and right up to now. The people, the hands that have been involved in the making of SpongeBob is a really small number of people. Like even as big as it's gotten, it's still when it comes down to the shows, you know, it's a very handcrafted, handmade quilt of a show even now, and I think that's that's kind of cool.
Yeah,
you know, it's as big as it's gotten. It's still a pretty small amount of people that have their hand that are baking the pie.
Yeah.
And
it keeps the aesthetic pure.
It keeps the aesthetic pure. Yeah, and Steve Hillenburg had actually stepped away from the show for a while and turned it over to others because I think he just felt like his brain was melting after a handful of seasons.
Sure.
And now he's he's back and we're
Right.
doing new TV episodes. You know, so we have Paul Tibbett, who's been in charge of the show forever, is still in charge, but you got Steve Hillenburg helming some of it too, which hadn't been the case for a while. You know, like,
That's great.
Like Paul has been ably running the SpongeBob ship for a long time.
Nice.
And it's Steve was like, okay, now I can stop into the restaurant every so often and cook up my souffle and then
Perfect.
and then leave.
Pass along, yeah.
Can I do another one of these?
Sure.
Flip it over.
This one is from Julia Pucci, right?
Yeah.
Julia
Julia
Pucci. Julia Pucci. What is the Krabby Patty formula? Julia, you know better than that. Come on. I am not.
What?
I want to still be working on this show. If I gave away, I don't know the formula.
The secret formula.
Yes.
You don't know
However, the secret formula getting stolen is kind of what this whole movie hinges on.
Dun, dun, dun,
So
dun.
maybe if you go see the movie, you'll finally find out.
Go see the movie.
Julia Pucci, you
Yes.
called it.
Yeah.
Antonio Banderas steals the Krabby Patty.
Does he play
formula.
himself?
He plays.
Wait, is this real life right now?
This is real life. Yeah.
Is this real life?
This is totally real life. He plays a character called Burger Beard, the pirate that
Wow.
we wind up
Is
chasing
this
him around.
beard just made of multiple
You know,
burgers?
I wish that was true.
Oh, that'd be so cool.
But that is his name.
Maybe he just has burger caught in his beard.
Oh, okay.
So yeah,
Little flakes and
to
crumbs.
clear Plankton's name, because of course Plankton always gets blamed
Sure.
for everything. SpongeBob and Plankton have to make a journey through space and time and dimensions. It's really a weird movie. Like
Awesome.
it's kind of like if you drop SpongeBob into the middle of Back to the Future
Okay.
and Mad Max and Guardians of the Galaxy.
It sounds like an incredible
Sounds
movie.
like
It really is. It's got
best.
some Road Warrior Mad Max in it. Definitely Back to the Future because I just watched Back to the Future.
'Cause it's
with my kids.
2015.
It's 2015. So I had not seen those movies in years. So we just watched them, and then we're watching it. My daughter goes, my 11-year-old daughter goes, we were watching the SpongeBob movie, and she goes, it's a lot like Back to the Future, where they got to go back to the point where the timeline went off.
Your daughter
love
is
time
awesome.
travel
She is
movies, and
awesome.
your daughter
She
Your
really is
daughter is
awesome.
awesome.
But yeah. So that was a great thing about the screening was that there was too cool for school teenagers there, and
Yeah.
and little kids and tweens and grandparents and
Yeah.
hipsters and everybody was yucking it up. So that was kind of nice because you're always
Yeah.
like, you
That's
never
so
know.
Pray that you hit
exciting.
every-
But yeah, it's definitely I can definitely promise weirdness.
Okay.
Like when you think about like
I bought a ticket.
when because you think about like kids movies.
Yeah.
Like a lot of times they're not weird enough.
No, they need to
Like
be off
Wizard
the
of Oz?
deep end bizarre.
Totally weird.
Totally
Yeah.
weird.
You know what I mean? Willy Wonka, the original.
Very
Yeah.
weird.
Very weird.
Return to Oz?
Oh.
Crazy weird.
Oh,
Really
Dorothy
bizarre.
getting shock treatment.
Yeah.
Come on.
What the hell?
Yeah.
Go see Return to Oz, everyone, if you
Farouza
haven't
Balk.
seen it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Why do I know the name of the girl that played Dorothy in Return to Oz?
Because you're awesome.
That was directed by
was
who
that?
directed that? Was
Go, go, go.
I think it was Frank Oz.
It was
but
Frank Oz. Well, yeah. I think it was Frank
it was
Oz.
Frank Oz.
Walter Murch or somebody had something
Well,
to do
We'll
with it.
have,
yeah.
like, an
he probably
editor
did all the
fact check
sound.
come
He probably
up
did
right
all the
here.
sound. Yeah.
Yeah, well, we're getting deep into nerddom here.
I
But
love it.
I haven't seen that movie
It's-
since it came out, and it left such an impression on how it's
Well, I didn't
so
see
disturbing.
it growing up. I saw
It's
it
so
after the
disturbing.
legends were
Well,
passed
but
down.
then, guys, there were totally normal movies like Dark Crystal.
Yeah, totally
That's
normal.
another completely weird.
Labyrinth, totally
normal.
Exactly. This movie, those are the kind of thing I'm talking about. Yeah. And this movie is every bit as weird as that, like Never-Ending Story weird.
Yeah.
It's definitely not formulaic, I'll tell you that.
Good.
And you said it comes out February 6th?
February 6th. Mm-hmm. PJ Ironside. Right?
Yeah.
At That Girl Trish. Oh no, SourceFed at That Girl Trish. That's you.
Yeah.
So this is just what they're sending it to.
I
just need to read this.
I just read everything that's on the paper.
It's okay.
I just read everything that's on the paper.
Perfect.
You know, how does a sea sponge deal with discrimination in a predominantly fish-populated world? How does a sea sponge deal with discrimination in a predominantly fish-populated world? Oh
the
my
sea
gosh.
sponge would be the minority, I would assume.
He
Yes.
is a minority, but I would have
Philip, I'm so glad that you have shined a spotlight on this issue. This is something
Very
that people
important.
don't talk about. It's uncomfortable to talk about it.
Yeah, we're gonna get real deep today, guys. Watch
It's under the radar. And I think it says a lot about SpongeBob that in a Piscean, fish-oriented world.
Piscean.
Yes, that's
Yes.
right.
Yeah.
He is a disadvantaged.
Yeah.
People judge him because he's a peripheran, and is I'm not even going to get into how sponges reproduce, but I don't
By
think
budding.
But I don't think exactly. Can we say budding?
We can say
can
that.
say budding.
Kids? Okay, but
Can you bleep out the word?
I think it says a lot about SpongeBob that he's able to get in there and make his mark in the world.
Be his own sponge.
And I guess as long as we're on the subject, Sandy too.
Yeah.
The lone mammal in a world of sea creatures. She left Texas and said, I want to see how the other half lives. I'm gonna put on my little helmet.
Yeah.
I'm gonna live in a pressure-controlled dome.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna.
Well,
I'm a pioneer.
It
So I think
explains
SpongeBob and Sandy both probably have to face a certain amount of
discrimination. I think that's the root
And they
of their
triumph.
friendship. It's the root of their friendship. They both know
we're
square
lonely.
pegs. We're loners. We don't fit in, but we fit in with each other.
That's right. Yeah. That's right. I think we just
Something real beautiful.
we
right
just
here.
we just hit on something really pretty.
I think it was lovely.
Thank you.
Folks, that's going to be all for us on this episode of Table Talk. I want to give a very special thank you to Mr. Tom Kennedy.
We got to all of them.
For kicking butt.
There's none left.
None left.
None left. Got them all.
Yeah.
Overachiever.
Thanks for having me, guys. That was so
Absolutely.
fun.
So go see SpongeBob Sponge Out of Water on February 6th. Continue to send your topics and questions to #TableTalk and Reddit/r/SourceFed.
You got to ask your next guest these same exact questions.
Done.
Absolutely.
All right.
Deal.
Okay.
100% yes. How often, when you are in public, do you break out into SpongeBob?
We're gonna put
Let us
them
know
back in the bowl.
comments below.
Let us know in the comments below, guys. Awesome.
Thanks
you
for
so
watching,
much.
guys.